Morning everyone. Thanks so much for joining us today. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Elizabeth Pettit, the founder and managing director of PPD Search. For those, we're a recruitment consultancy who identify and place permanent contract and temporary talent for the healthcare industry at all levels in all job functions across Australia and New Zealand. We've been doing this for the last 14 years and primarily work within the pharmaceutical and medical device sectors. We're very passionate about partnering with our clients and adding value through providing market insights, and it's why we've been hosting webinars since May with industry thought leaders and recognised authorities on all things talent and culture related and other topics specifically relevant for the pharma and medical device industries. Today we're in for a real treat with three amazing panellists sharing their expertise around what potential talent look for when joining an organisation in this new COVID world, and what existing employees will expect from their employers moving forward. How does this relate to employer brand and company reputation, and what does good onboarding and subsequent connection look like, and how this affects retention and the financial consequences of not getting this right? Let me introduce them to you. First, we have Jay Munro. Having worked within the recruitment industry for over 20 years, Jay Munro is indeed Senior Manager of Country Marketing for Australia and New Zealand. During his career, Jay has worked to understand the behaviours and challenges around how people find jobs and how companies identify talent. He regularly contributes to a range of publications in Australia and internationally, and speaks at many industry topics or industry events on topics ranging from diversity, unconscious bias in recruiting, and the sociology of job search. Next up, we have Anthony Sork. Anthony is a world-recognised thought leader in employee emotional bonding and employee perception measurement. Anthony has changed the way organisations understand and impact engagement across their workforce, and is an expert on culture transformation and leadership. As an executive leadership coach and global keynote speaker, Anthony works across all industries, including working with many clients in the pharma and device sector. Anthony has been interviewed and featured in various media publications. We, PPD Search, we've worked with Anthony for over 10 years to add value to our clients' onboarding process. And last but certainly not least, we have with us today Mark Puncher, a dad, the founder and CEO of Employer Branding Australia. And he tells us a big fan of gin. He spent much of the last 18 years with one hand in marketing, the other in talent attraction, and both feet in leadership. Mark lives and breathes employer branding and culture shaping. And when he isn't doing that, Mark's current hobbies include finger painting, 5 a.m. ballet, and building dens. He also has strong beliefs about the importance of wine. So Mark, I'm with you on that front on the wine. However, I'm not sure about the 5 a.m. ballet. Very keen to hear more about that.
No, you're not.
So thanks again to Jay, Anthony and Mark, and all of you for joining us. Let's kick off now. As usual, we'll make time for questions. So pop yours in the Q&A section at the bottom of the screen, and we'll get to as many as we can afterwards. So I want to start with Jay. Jay, given your expertise in what you do every day at Indeed, what are you seeing that candidates want now in the new world of work? I'm hearing more and more about how productive employees are working from home. It seems that moving forward, most companies will be working within a hybrid model, meaning time will be divided between the office and home. Given this, what are you seeing in relation to what candidates and employees expect now from employers, and has this changed from pre-COVID times? A long question, sorry.
It is. I think a lot has changed because of COVID, and it certainly tested many organizations, and not just organizations themselves, but leadership teams with the whole concept of working from home. A lot of us have struggled with various elements associated with that working from home, being the trust, responsibility, communication, and that productivity as well. Just with that very idea that our employees could be not, I guess, working alongside of us completely, and that they could be away from us for that extended period. It means that we've very quickly needed to assess and improve our technology capabilities as well. And all of that we've been concerned about as employers and managers directly translates into candidate needs as well. From us as business leaders, candidates or employees need us to have faith and trust that they're going to be responsible and productive, and that they're going to be doing their work. They need to be led and introduced to new strategies of how to communicate. We can't just expect that they know how to do it, and we need to provide them with the appropriate technologies to get work done. I think it's certainly possible to maintain productivity in a fully working from home model. And if you look at other companies like InVision, as an example, they're a global software organization. They've actually had a completely remote workforce in effect before the pandemic. And they operated extremely effectively with that model prior to other companies being forced to work from home or adopt that model. And of course, speaking from experience, my employer, Indeed, we sent over 10,000 employees to work from home globally on March the 3rd this year. And we will continue to work from home up until July of next year. We made that decision based on an internal survey that we conducted amongst our employees. 84% of our staff said that we were able to continue to stay productive. Of course, we had some hiccups along the way and some learnings that we had to go through. But we had to make a lot of small and quite large changes along the way, but we were able to continue to launch new products all around the world, continue to launch and run dozens and dozens of virtual events as well all around the world. So it didn't actually stop us from being productive.
What about candidates, Jay? Like what is Indeed seeing from what candidates want? So any statistics around that type of thing, like what candidates want now in this new world?
What we're hearing from candidates is that, and I think what we're seeing from candidates is there's this really difficult delineation between work and life now, because we've kind of pushed work into their personal lives. And so it's not so much work-life balance anymore. That's gone out the window. It's this concept of work-life integration. And one of the things I know I suffered with when we were all forced to work from home was I had this concept in my mind of, well, if someone from the US or our German team needs something done at any time of the night, well, I'm at home. What else am I doing now? So I felt obliged.
Maybe sleeping?
Well, yeah, but I felt obliged to respond. Like I didn't have dinner plans or I wasn't going anywhere. And it was really difficult. And then I had this perception that, well, my teams aren't doing anything either. And I had to step back and think, well, this is going to very quickly lead to burnout of myself and everyone that I have in my teams and that I work with. So,
sorry, go on.
Yeah, and then, you know, we also had parents who were homeschooling, and that was impacting schedules. And it was this really difficult juggle to try and get used to. We didn't have lunch breaks or, you know, that kind of 9 to 5 anymore, and it doesn't work anymore. So we're seeing this integration where you kind of have to flick back and forth between your home duties and your work duties or responsibilities. So they're calling them gentle pivots, which is another, you know, fad phrase or jargon, which I try to steer clear of, but you kind of jumping back and forth between, you know, providing that homeschooling and going to a work meeting and going and exercising and doing all these things, but you can do it. It's just juggling and making sure that it suits your lifestyle and your work responsibilities and everything else.
So are you saying that if companies don't offer this work-life integration, that candidates don't want to join those companies?
Well, I mean, how can they? How can they support their life now if a company's not willing to support what they need in their life, then why would they put themselves out? We know now that it's an easy way to burn out. It's an easy way not to be engaged. And we know that other companies are going to offer it. You know, this pandemic has really shown us a different way of working, and that it is possible that we can be productive. We have the tools to do it. It's really tested these tools. It's really tested, I think, more than anything, the way we communicate. And communication has been the most difficult part, I think, of any of it. But if we can see that some companies are actually flourishing, then why can't others get on board with this?
Okay, great. Thanks, Jay. Thanks. Anthony, you and I have talked about culture, leadership and development. Do you have anything to add here with what candidates and employees expect from their employers in this regard?
Yeah, thanks, Elizabeth. And you know, I agree with pretty much everything that Jay just said then, in terms of I don't know the active candidate market as well as Jay and Mark do, but what I know is a lot has changed, but also not a lot has changed in many instances. And for any employee in any environment, or any prospective employee, I think what is still really front of mind is alignment to purpose. So an individual who is going to be actively seeking employment with any organisation, or retaining employment with any organisation, I think that's first and foremost, is that they feel that there's alignment of purpose to themselves and values as well. I think that with the changes that Jay outlined there, there's definitely those organisations that are going to be more ready to embrace remote working and work-life integration, I think is terminology, which I like. I think that the way that organisations go forward and invest in their leadership development, and understand how to create a culture that embraces not having to have people in the office, in the line of sight, with that feeling of a need for some level of control, or at least the perception of control. I think there's going to be a real need to develop leadership in that way, to help those organisations that are lagging to embrace this new way of working. But in terms of employees or candidates and what they're seeking, most importantly, that purpose alignment, looking for an organisation that seeks to understand their individual circumstances, their thinking and their feeling, and then work to embrace that to help those individuals be the best version of themselves each day, whether they're in their lounge room, whether they're in the office or somewhere else. And that really sits in that framework of a culture of excellence. So really making that commitment to understand the needs of each employee, doing that relative to people coming into the organisation as well as those that are within your organisation at the moment.
Okay, fantastic. Thanks so much, Anthony. Thank you. So, guys, we've now got 4 generations in the workforce. We've got Gen Zs entering the workforce, the oldest of them being 24. We've got the Gen Ys, Millennials, are 25 to 39. Can you believe they're getting older, so much older now? Gen Xs are 40 to 55, and then the baby boomers are 56 to 74. So what drives each generation, and how does that impact the way we hire? Do we need a different recruitment strategy for each generation, given each generation is motivated by different things? Keeping in mind that we know that a diverse workplace is one of the main factors potential employees look at when deciding to apply or join an organisation, and over 50% of employees want their organisations to do more to increase diversity. We know diversity is not just about age, but in this case, let's explore what people want from each generation. Anthony, what are your thoughts here?
Look, I like generation trend data. I think it's always fun and interesting to have a look at. I guess I think there's some really interesting things you can extract in terms of cross workforce and cross populations. But my feeling is you always need to be really careful of looking at generation trends as well. In that there's no way that I would recommend anyone sort of just pigeonholing someone and anticipating behaviours or anticipating needs based purely on the demographic of when they were born. I think it's interesting to have a look at that stuff. I think we've all done, well, at least I've enjoyed sort of doing the throwback to sort of 80s sort of youth and pop culture type of moments and reflecting in that space. I think that there are definitely some things that you can look to as trends, but just always looking to the individual and ensuring that you're achieving the right fit for both your organisation, but also ensuring you're looking for what the right fit for the individual is to your organisation at all times. I'll leave it to the other experts who are generational experts in the
No worries, thanks, Anthony. No, I appreciate that. Jay, what are you seeing there?
I do often get on a rant about generational recruitment for very similar reasons to Anthony. And about any type of recruitment that looks at diversity and inclusion, particularly because when we talk about diversity and inclusion, we often don't think about intersectionality. And to clarify on that, it's the concept of that there's all different factors when it comes to diversity that kind of are interdependent. So if we think about one classification of a person, let's say it's race, there's all these other social groupings like gender, sexuality that also impact that person. So it's not just one thing for that person, there's all these other elements that also cause oppression and discrimination. And one person's lived experience is different to everyone else, but it's what we notice first and what we tend to classify them as first. So when we think about age, we can classify them first based on their generation rather than everything else which is relevant to them. And so I think it can be very dangerous to look at generations because we start to pigeonhole and stereotype. When we look at complaints made to the Australian Human Rights Commission, over 60% of complaints made each year are based on age discrimination when it comes to recruitment. So it's actually extremely high in Australia, and that's really, really disappointing, especially when we've known for so long that you can't discriminate based on age when it comes to recruitment. Like it's such a well-known fact. And 30% of Australians feel that they need to hide their age when it comes to applying for jobs. Like it's a really tricky one. One of the, some of the biases that we have around generations are that we expect older generations to, we try to fit them into certain jobs, that they've built up all this experience, and we'll see their resume come through from a more junior position and we'll reject them straight away. And we don't think of what their drivers actually are. And, that's really dangerous because we might be dismissing them, whereas they might just want to dip their toe back into the workforce because they need some social interaction because of loneliness or social isolation, or they might need a bit of financial income. I think this whole generational recruitment is very dangerous. I think we should be, looking at skills, recruiting based on skills and merit, and having discussions with candidates and finding out what their individual drivers are.
Can I ask? I totally agree, and I totally get that, and I'm always one for, I never like to say no to candidates. I'm like, I want to encourage and inspire people to, reach their goals and apply for what they, not say, oh, well, knowing, oh, he's old, so no, I'm going to ring him, or whatever. We're certainly not a company, you know, we want to embrace everybody, basically, is what I'm trying to say. But if I look at, say, the Gen Zs and the Gen Ys, millennials, what we hear is they'll often ask things about what are their IT systems like, what technology do they have, all of that sort of stuff around systems and processes. So we know that if you've got the younger generations going into companies where they don't have innovative technology, those companies aren't going to attract those people. Would you say that that's probably right?
Yeah, I think there's certainly if we think about the socialization process when people enter the workforce, we can extrapolate a bit from that. So if you thought about when, let's say, baby boomers entered the workforce, it was all about stability and job security and having that income to support families. So that would probably be a seed in their mind, or that's how they were primed for work. That will change as, you know, their drivers change and stage of life and the environment changes around them. If you think about Gen X, it changed a little bit more. It became about career progression and about some reward and recognition. So it evolved a little bit. And then we had, I'm losing my alphabet here. We had Gen Y. We had more technology being introduced. We had more development, more recognition. And then finally, we have more social awareness happening in the world, a lot more technology, more innovation, more collaboration, and it's less about career progression, but, you know, being a bit edgier and trying new things, pushing boundaries. So the socialization around work through time certainly changes expectations, but that's not to say that someone will be hung up of when they were socialized, because we can change. We don't get stuck when we entered, but it definitely has an impact when we are socialized.
Yeah, okay. Thanks, Jay. Thank you. Mark, I've recently heard that companies globally are looking at a variety of programs to attract and retain people. What are you seeing companies do in this regard?
Wake up for a start. I will say I'm trying to think of something more pointless and unhelpful than generational labels. I think you know, I'm sure someone with more degrees than me will be able to tell me why they matter, but in this case, really unhelpful. But what we need to think about is what's, as Jay said, what's going on in the world right now, and that's what good employers are starting to do. I think the most important thing, and I will answer your question specifically with what they're doing.
You're right.
The most important thing from your first question, what's going on in COVID, is the idea of working from home, flexible working. Let's just take working from home. It used to be seen as a gift to an employee. You know, you lucky thing, you've earned our trust. Now you can, you know, and it's almost like work from home becomes a doona day, which is nonsense. During COVID, for those who are still very much affected by it, and my heart goes out to you. I'm based in Brisbane. I feel very lucky right now. But and for those who have been affected by it, it became a necessity. And what happened there that fascinated me is it went from being a gift from an employer to an employee, or a benefit, to being a requirement. And actually it completely went 180. You know, this was suddenly oh my goodness, our people aren't here anymore. We can't see them anymore. Are they performing? Do they feel connected? And so it really changed. It actually became a plea to employees to please, please, please. If you're in a culture where you're used to being micromanaged, it was sort of saying, we know we've been doing that forever. Can we please now trust you to work without us there? And of course, for many companies, that was a real struggle. What it is, though, to bring it back to what we were talking about, is an opportunity. Because if we, you know, we're talking about diversity and inclusion and generations and things they need. Well, if we can start to understand that actually, you know, we want diversity, we want diverse perspectives in our organization. If we can attract those people by basically thinking about the individual and what they need to thrive, rather than this is what we've got and this is what you need to fit into, whether it's a culture or a work setup, then you're going to get those diverse perspectives. So in terms of what really proactive employers are doing, and not just the big brands, in fact, in lots of cases, it's the opposite. I think they're doing three key things. The first thing is they are engaging with their employees and truly listening to what they say and what their experiences are. Again, I'd argue in a world where, yes, there's unemployment, and yes, lots of people won't leave even if they're unhappy because they're concerned about the economy. I'd argue actually it's the employees that have the upper hand now more than ever, because staying in a job is not the same as performing in a job. So we need to engage our people, connect, ask them how they're going, not just, you know, you're all right, let's do some yoga together, but online, but, you know, let's actually see where you're at and what's going on for you, and how can we enable you to thrive even more. So listening to them. So now is the time to be doing those employee engagement, employee experience, the employee value proposition. Now's the time to be revisiting your values. If your values are just words on a poster on a wall, just forget it. You know, they're useless. They're just a stick that your people will beat you with. So first thing, listen to your employees and learn and do something about it. So get strategic. The second thing they're doing is much more organizational storytelling. So from a central perspective, often, what we're helping a lot of clients do is actually capture people's stories, capture people's journeys, capture people's sentiment, and turning that into stories and content that can be used internally to drive pride and connection. It is amazing. The biggest hack right now in culture, if you tell stories and celebrate your people, people feel good about that. But also to get it out externally. So it's one of the most powerful recruitment tools to be out there. If you want to attract great people, show the ones you already have.
Yeah.
The last thing, and this is really key, and I see so many organizations not do this, grab your managers. So it's always been a case that, you know, it doesn't matter how good your CEO or your strategy or your branding is, if the most junior supervisor on the ground of people is rubbish or is not committed or is not doing the right things, it destroys your employee experience for those people working with that person. So now more than ever, we are relying, and the bigger you are as an organization, the more you're dependent on those individual human beings who are highly imperfect, fantastic imperfect, for them to embrace their role as a leader and as a manager and actually drive a powerful employee experience. I'll give you an example. I'm working with a council at the moment. I'm working with a number of them, but one of them, I was talking to one of their outdoor workers. So he is working on the roads, you know, with bitumen and fixing road holes in the road and so on every day. And we were talking about a culture of speaking up and sharing and calling out what's bad and what's wrong. And everyone was getting all engaged. And this fella put his hand up. He's in his high vis and his big boots and his hard hat. And he said, with my last manager, if you spoke up and called it out, you could guarantee you'd be picking the weeds out the yard for the next 2 weeks. Now, there's a great example. I guarantee the CEO didn't expect that to happen, didn't want that to happen. I guarantee that's not sitting in a strategy anywhere. But that was a manager who shouldn't be anywhere near managing people. And they either need to be helped to be better at that, or they need to be stepped aside and removed and put into something else. So I'm going on a bit. It's strategy and engagement and listening to your people, storytelling, and then grab those managers and get them leading.
Yeah, fantastic, Mark. Thank you. Totally agree. Jay, you recently mentioned, when I heard you speak a couple of weeks ago, about fulfillment policies, flexibility, returnship programs, family friendly, all of that type of thing. So just as far as, Jay, what you're seeing companies doing globally, can you just briefly speak to that?
Yeah, sure. Just before I do, to expand on Mark, I have an example from my own team. I think communication is really important, and I think listening is key to that. I've personally really struggled with the, I guess, starting to work from home and trying to figure out how to communicate with teams where you're familiar with working alongside your team, and then all of a sudden you don't see them anymore. And I think I started with trying to have regular meetings, and there's only so many Zoom meetings that you can have in 1 week without it, there's nothing left to say. And I noticed one of my team members was, I guess, a bit flat in mood after a while, and I had to address it because it was affecting others, even on a Zoom call. And it turned out that I wasn't picking up that there was a complete lack of social interaction now. The social interactions of just, the small chat around the kitchen or the coffee machine, and that was really starting to affect the team dynamic. So I think, I hadn't stopped to find out how everyone was going and do that kind of small pulse check. And just I think I left it too late, but if I think doing that more frequently and regularly is one thing that's really going to help in this situation.
Yeah, I love that. You know, being an employer is a weird thing because we're not their parent and we're not their client, but we seem to oscillate between the two. And I think, again, with COVID, you know, people are having a really shitty time right now, a lot of people, and that's horrible. And we can't do a lot about that in some ways. But as leaders and as employers, we need to be creating an environment where people can, you know, just be the best they can be, you know, in whatever's going on for them. But again, not as a gift to people. Obviously, we want to be good people and good employees. We want to help people, of course. We care about that, but it's also smart for business. And right now, we don't have a choice. If you don't enable your people, of course, they can work less hard in most environments. Unless they're picking grapes and you're counting them at the end of the day and seeing who picked the most or the least, then you're reliant on those people to have integrity and to be committed and connected. Exactly as you said, you've got to reflect on yourself as a leader and say, what do I need to do differently? How can I help this situation?
Yeah, absolutely. So Jay, sorry, just going back to that one, you mentioned, I heard you mention before about companies globally looking at parenting lounges, adjusting hours for summer, having Friday afternoons off, parental leave. What are you seeing there?
Some really good ones. There's, for example, returnship programs have started to emerge or become more popular. So PepsiCo have a ready to return program over in the US and the UK. They're kind of, I guess, welcoming people back from all different career backgrounds, including warehouse managers, account managers. Johnson & Johnson, they call theirs a Reignite program focused on STEM professionals who took some time off to further pursue education or family care. I know St. Vincent's Private used to have, I don't know if they still do, they had a return to nursing program for nurses who had a bit of time off. So it was kind of a transition back to nursing program to reskill. Suncorp are well known for some amazing family-friendly policies with flexible working arrangements, part-time working and the likes, and job sharing. There's family lounges or parenting lounges at companies like Westpac, Optus, American Express. What else do we have?
And what about the adjusting hours for summer? I love that one.
That's General Mills. So they're a manufacturer of brands like El Paso and Nature Valley. So in summer, they give Friday afternoons off so you can have family-friendly summer hours or just, you know, personal summer hours at the beach or whatever you may like. We've got extended parental leave at Vodafone. Perpetual Guardian is an interesting one over in New Zealand. They cut from a 5-day work week down to 4 days without any salary cut for their staff, and they found that productivity remained the same, but engagement and satisfaction among staff, of course, increased.
Wow.
So there's some really interesting changes or programs being introduced, and it doesn't necessarily need a really huge financial backing. They can be small modifications or programs that can be introduced.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Jay. Thank you. Anthony, with people being a company's best asset, but also the most expensive asset, hiring the right people, however, not inducting and onboarding them correctly, can be a disaster and extremely costly. How important is the candidate experience and so the candidate experience while they're going through the process when they first hear about the organisation, and how that organisation treats the candidate, and then when they get the job, the first 90 days in the organisation. So talk to me about that.
Thanks, Lizzie. Yeah, you're sort of digging into some of our research in attachment in that space. And so, look, the experience that a candidate has going through the recruitment process actually starts before that, and Mark could probably talk more extensively about the positioning of your employer brand in the marketplace, but that indirect influence on the employer experience. I think I've probably got a little bit of a beeping noise going on here in the background. It's garbage collection day, so you can all share in me working from home at the moment. And just so you know, my four-legged employee is about to go nuts at the garbage truck as well. So he was hired for that purpose, actually. But no.
Go viral, Anthony. Come on, let's get the dog in. Come on.
He'll let you know he's here in a moment. Look, your employer brand positioning in the marketplace is a pretty important one, just simply to be able to help you attract talent once a position actually becomes available. And depending on what you've done in that space, both actively and deliberately through either positioning your brand through advertising and other means, can have an impact, but no bigger impact actually than your existing workforce and your past workforce. And so looking at the way in which you're able to attract people to apply for roles, it's an important thing that, again, I'll let Mark talk to that with more expertise in that space, but it certainly does impact the expectations of employees or prospective employees, candidates, as they apply to you for a position. They have already had some level of development of expectation of who you are, how you're going to treat them, and what the opportunity of working for you is going to be. How you create that experience, both through your extended partnerships with your recruitment partnerships, for example, working with partners like PPD Search, or if you have a reasonably self-sufficient internal recruitment function, how they are, I guess, treated through that process is going to have a really big impact ultimately on the final candidate that is selected or candidates that actually get hired. But everyone that experiences that process is going to go back into the market and affect your employer brand as well. So it's going to have a pretty big impact on that. But when we have a look at attachment as a unique phenomenon, whenever someone joins a social structure, the strength of emotional bond that forms is actually based on 4 core perceptions, and that's their sense of security, trust and value, acceptance and belonging. And there's a critical attachment period that exists for people, and it actually begins with the active involvement in the recruitment process with you. So how they go about moving through that experience, what they experience of the people that are involved, what they come to observe and experience both directly as well as indirectly, is going to have an impact on the strength of the emotional bond that is formed, even up to and including that first day of commencing with you. We measure attachment at the 90th day of employment from the date of commencement, but the impact of that pre-period, that pre-employment period, including recruitment and selection, is going to have an impact on that. And the relative strength of attachment that is achieved with an employee is going to have an impact on the risk of attrition or the likely retention of that person, and the level of discretionary effort that an individual will actually apply in their role over the course of the lifespan that they're with your organisation. Specifically, we measure that over the first 18 months. So if you fail to do that attaching bonding process effectively, you're increasing the risk of attrition. You're also increasing the likelihood that you're suppressing discretionary effort and contribution of the employee. Now, the financial cost of that can be significant. If you are any organisation, you're going to end up wearing, as my employee, you're going to wear the cost of that. But interestingly, smaller to medium businesses feel that in a more pronounced way more quickly. And every manager who's ever had a failed recruitment exercise, so if you've had a bit of a revolving door of talent, you understand not just the financial cost, which kind of gets excused a little bit sometimes by frontline managers and leaders, hiring managers, but the emotional cost of that on the manager and on the team that you are recruiting someone into can actually be significant. So getting that right becomes a really important thing, not to go backwards, but to take yourself forward. So it's a double proposition. By focusing on this, doing it well, you mitigate a potential loss, but you also increase the discretionary effort and contribution of an employee who will stick around and add greater value to you long term. So it's an important one. And Lizzie, at another time, we don't have time today, but at another time, maybe those that are interested, there's a calculator on this, and we talk in terms of figures, lots of different ways to calculate the cost of losing an employee. You know, ARI and other organisations talk about 6 or 7 times salary. The truth is, we've been able to show pretty consistently that every time you make the decision to hire an employee into your organisation, you're conservatively investing $100,000 in direct and indirect costs. And so any other investment of that size in any business would have all kinds of governance and risk management set around it. And yet with employees, we often just take this as the cost of doing business, and we're not clear on what that investment is with the people who are actually conducting the process. And so therefore often they don't take it as seriously as probably they should. But those who do, they actually end up getting that strong attachment bond, which flows on to a high connection bond, which, to the point of both Jay and Mark before, what they were talking about in understanding each employee's circumstances, thinking and feeling, actively seeking to measure that and understand that. That's actually the characteristic of a culture of excellence. A high-performing culture of excellence means that every manager, every leader at every level of the organisation is committed to understanding the circumstances, thinking and feeling of each of their employees, not just during COVID, but actually all the time. COVID has highlighted the fact that we may not have been doing that as well as we should have, but this is actually a fundamental principle of, if you want to build a culture of excellence, every leader in the organisation at every operational level needs to have that commitment to wanting to create the best experience that they can for their people, to bring out the performance potential of every single person, regardless of their circumstances. I hope I've answered your question somewhere.
No, that's brilliant. I mean, the thing is, I think we get on another webinar and we do just to you for an hour on this stuff, because I love it, and it's just so important to any organisation, how you attach and then subsequently connect with your people to keep them long term. I mean, retention is key, and attrition is so expensive, and I just don't think companies really understand what's happening when people aren't being treated in the right way, and then there's attrition and how much that affects the company and that cost. And there's also the emotional cost of attrition as well. So what happens to all the other in that, you know, there's all of that as well.
Yeah, so you were breaking up a little bit there. So I guess just to reiterate, no, that's right, reiterate the point that, yeah, there is a financial cost of getting it wrong, but there is such a big gain to getting it right. And so a lot of organisations look at their talent and with the view of an employer-centric view. What am I going to do to you, and what do I want from you? And what we've actually got to do is recognise that there's another piece to this, and that is that what are the employees seeking to experience, and what is it that they are either getting or lacking in that process, that through asking the right questions and having that level of interest, and then creating an experience that can be adapted to ensure that they're getting what they need to create that really strong bond and then sustain that bond, the value of that is significant. Then with changing circumstances, whatever they are, whether there are macro environmental conditions that come along and impact us, or whether it's stuff that's more localized and internal, if we have created that kind of culture, that culture of excellence through focusing on having those strong emotional bonds with our employees, then we're going to have a much more willing, receptive, adaptable workforce who want to come on that journey with you. And you don't have to take the traditional command and control, need to have you in my line of sight approach, which is just not going to work going forward. And so back to the point, I think one of the most important things we can do as organisations is invest in leadership development, specifically leadership behavioural impact. That is where we are going to get the real shift in those organisations that are lagging. So if you're going to be investing in any kind of training and development going forward as an organisation, in addition to core competencies that ensure that they can do the job, the next most important thing is in that leadership behavioural impact space, because that's going to be the difference of whether you achieve those bonds and sustain them or not.
100%. So we see often in recruitment, we see, and we talk to probably 50 companies, you know, a year. probably a bit more than that. We see poor behaviours from managers equal turnover, and we see it all the time. And if that poor behaviour is not addressed, then everyone culturally thinks, oh, well, that's acceptable. I can act like that too, because nothing happens when you act like that. So that poor behaviour from leaders and managers leads to attrition. And yeah, as I said, if nothing's done about that, then yeah, it's a bit of a disaster. So we're coming up to 10:45, but I do just want to go to Mark. Thanks, Ant, so much. Fantastic. Mark, tell us about, and Anthony touched on this with employer branding and EVP, but tell us about, what does good employer branding look like, and does it matter to potential and existing employees? Are they proud to work for a good brand? I would say yes. Reputation, strong EVP, all of that. So just talk to us about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I suppose the starting point is to say employer branding is not about PR, gloss and hype. So yep, great job ads, some great videos, it all helps, it's all nice, but I'm fed up really of seeing big brands put out videos about careers with us, and there's galaxies and there's all sorts of stuff, and the people working in the warehouse are saying, this isn't the company I work for. Employer branding is about showing why you're a great choice for some people based on what matters to them. And it's also about educating people and say, we might not be right for you, and that is fine. We're okay with it, you should be okay with it. I'm recruiting right now into my own little team. I'm spending 90% of my time talking people out of the job. And I'm not being sort of trying to be simplistic about that. Of course you want to sell, but actually, and you want to sell the job and so on, but what you need to do is to say, look, here's why we think you'll love it. We've got it in our current job ad that's live. Here's why we think you'll love working for us, and here's why we're afraid you might not. And that is about helping people deselect. In doing that, and it sort of touched on what I said earlier to answer your question, it is absolutely about how your people feel. When you, if your people are really unhappy or disconnected, putting out employer branding campaigns is going to make it worse, because with everything we put out for a client or with a client, we'll ask the question, or we'll ask, what is your response to this as employees? And if your employees are rolling their eyes or spitting venom when they see your latest piece of PR, you need to ditch that stuff. So we start from a point of saying your first piece of work and your first activity when you're looking at employer branding is research and engagement. Talk to your people. Yeah, talk to your candidates as well. Talk to you about your past candidates. Talk to your past employees. Most importantly, ask your current people, why do you stay? And why might you leave? And what makes someone great here? What makes someone feel successful here? What makes the wrong hire wrong here? All of those questions. And it's really having deep conversations with your people, and they're intimate conversations, which is why we often talk about one-to-one interviews rather than just loads of focus groups with people, to say, what is it about for you? And not just what is it about, but give us some examples, give us some stories, because that's how we understand the angle. Elizabeth, we talked about an event that I spoke at last year, and you talked about this. I was joking about job ads, and people using words like, at the top of your job ads, fun culture. There's no better way to tell people you're not a fun place to work than like fun culture. You have, what do you mean? What is it? That depends on who you're talking to and what fun is for them. So employer branding is about showing, not telling. And it's about, first of all, starting by saying, well, our current people, what matters to them? Why do they like it? And why do they not like it? And we use that with our clients and for ourselves as a benchmark to say, well, if the majority of our people are saying the same things, well, it's probably likely that the person coming in is going to experience those things. The next piece to that, once you've done that engagement, is to say, well, actually, what do we want to, so if you think about all the findings, you might say, well, here's where we're really strong, here's where we fall short. I'd put that into buckets and say, what are we going to change? What do we need to work on? What are we really happy with? And what are the things that aren't great or aren't for everyone, but they're not going to change? And that's vital, because usually it's not about good or bad. It's about what floats someone's boat isn't going to float someone else's.
Yeah.
So that's where it starts. And I think, so it really matters to employees that they are, not only that they feel they're connected to the company, the organization they work for, and that they know what their contribution is and that they feel valued. But it also matters to them to feel, I think, the huge opportunity is to involve them in who you bring into this organization. I don't care if you've got 100,000 people or 4 people. You should be saying to your people, we've got a culture worth protecting. We've got an organization worth protecting. Nobody wants to work alongside someone they don't respect. or that makes life harder. So let's involve our people in that process. So employer branding actually starts and ends with your people. Every EVP, every employee value proposition we've ever created, we take it back to the people who participated. And it's not just one working group. You know, we want to be talking to 50, 60, 70, 80, 150 people across an organization. And when we're done, we want to come back to them and say, we don't say, look, ta-da, here's what us brandy people did. What we say is, here's what you told us. Here's what you shared. Here's what we've taken and here's how we've crafted that. Have we done you justice? Is this the organization you work for? And when you get that yes, it feels incredible. And it means that you're going out there to market with stuff that makes sense and that your people will support. And that's where you get to the active employee advocacy, which really is the nirvana of employer branding.
Yeah, right. Yeah, 100%. So I hear a lot about, or see, not a lot, but I think companies should do a lot more of this. Because video is so powerful and gets a lot more engagement on socials and all that type of thing, that, you know, current employees doing videos talking about what it's like to work here. I just think that's really powerful because it's not coming from HR or it's coming from the CEO or the MD or whatever. It's coming from, maybe it's coming from the warehouse manager or the picker and packer, or maybe it's coming from the EA to the finance manager or whatever. You know, it's nice to see that, to say, I love working here because, and I think that's really powerful. What do you think about videos currently?
100%. We have some most of our hard rules is, unless you're doing something incredibly creative, no actors, no scripts. Why on earth would you have a video about joining your organization and show people pretending to work for you? I cannot understand it. And it happens.
Really?
That happens a amount of time. A lot of the time what we see is real employees being forced to sit uncomfortably in front of a camera and say things they've been told to say or read a script. Again, I don't get it. Candidates see it a mile. They know this is fake.
Of course, people aren't stupid. And I think the authenticity of even having the outtakes of saying, oh, did I do that right? Or, you know, I think that's the fun side of, and people relate to that. People don't relate to someone reading off a script. They relate to the just being, I love working here because, you know.
And there's loads of examples out there now, Elizabeth. We've got loads. Anyone who wants to link in with me, feel free, and you'll see on our feed, and we're happy to share through you any links and stuff. But
awesome.
There's a fear, like, what if they say something we don't like? Well, first of all, you edit videos for a reason, but also if they're saying stuff you don't like, why are they in front of a camera? Why are you asking to advocate for you?
Yeah.
Whether it's park rangers, people working on road crews, whether it's PR people, whether it is salespeople, whether it's pharmacists, scientists, when you connect with them and say, tell us about you, tell us about what you care about, tell us about why you choose to be here, they will get positive. They will talk about the good. They'll also talk about the bad. We want people out there in market saying, I want my people out there in market saying, you know what, I love what I do. It's not perfect. Mark's exhausting. You know, it is a hard gig, but actually there's a load of great reasons to be here, because that's what it is. Fantastic.
Yeah. Mark, just on that, you said before that you go out and you talk to, you know, 50, 60, 150 people, and that's good in a bigger organisation. But for those of us who are very small businesses, do you work with, you know, the smaller companies? Like, what if it's just 10 people or 20 people or 30 people? You know, do you work with those companies as well?
They're my favourite. They're my favourites. The reality is everybody, but I mean, we're working at the moment, it is slightly bigger than you said. They're working with a company that has about 50 people. We're working with a community centre that has 35 people.
Right,
and they're great. And the beauty of that is you can speak to everybody. You can say, let's actually cover every single employee in this organisation.
Yeah, right.
They do what they do. And this stuff does not, I've got a real bugbear about employer branding businesses or even branding agencies, you know, generally. They're purporting that they're continuing this myth about fake, you know, let's pretend and let's make it look glossy, you know, and they shouldn't be. They're also, you know, when a lot of people do EVP exercises and they talk to the leadership team, and then they do a focus group for employees and they think they've got it. You know, you've completely missed the point. You need to get a really great cross-section of employees. You also need to talk to those team leaders and supervisors on the ground, because they're the ones who most want people in their teams and have the pain points when they can't recruit. Experience. So we need to really involve those people in the process. But I love the smaller businesses, and I also love the less sexy businesses. You know, fine, Google, Apple, all very exciting, but actually most of us work in organizations that are quite normal. I argue frankly that Google's very normal as well, but the brand just decides otherwise.
Yeah, right. Okay. Okay. No, that's fantastic. Thanks. Because I just thought if anyone wanted to talk to you, I do, about what you could do for them, you know, if they're thinking, because sometimes people think, oh, we only work with the big companies. If you work with everybody, that's great. So it's 5 to 11. Does anyone have any questions? I can't see any.
We've stunned them into submission.
Which is very unusual, I have to say. Let's just wait a little second in case, I'll just put that back on. In case, does anyone have any questions for Anthony, Jay or Mark? There must be also.
Oh, Zoe's happy. Thank you, Zoe.
Zoe's happy, yeah. And Joe, great discussion. Oh, okay, so once we return to normal, how much work from home will there be? Asks Ivan.
Okay, I'll say one thing very quickly and then let the experts talk on this. But I think the thing I've seen that's most exciting, there's a tech startup we're working with at the moment, and they've said, and they've always had this even before COVID, but they've said, look, especially now, we need to create 3 versions and we need to cater for all 3. One, what they're finding in their workforce is there's people who want to be in the office all the time, there's people who want to be at home all the time, and there's people who want to mix it up. If you are in a position where you can enable that, amazing. You know, crazy, isn't it? The idea that people can choose where they work best and what can get the best out of them. But that does require you to be quite an outcomes focused organization. You know, you can't, again, if you're picking the grapes off the vines, you need to be at work, you need to be in the office. But I like the idea that actually an employer saying we're going to cater for all the different needs our employees have, not as a gift, but because that helps us thrive and grow.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so on Ivan's point or question, what I'm hearing from many companies is they'll never go back to working in the office full time. That's what I'm hearing most about. It's going to be a hybrid workforce where you go in a couple of days a week, you work from home a couple of days a week. Now, is anyone, I mean, if we go to Jade, are you hearing anything on that?
Yeah, I mean, we did an internal survey of all of our staff, so 10,000 people, just to get an idea. And I mean, there were mixed results. Vast majority said that they didn't want to come back full time. So we had a range of people saying they'd come back 1, 2 or 3 days a week. We have reopened one office so far over in Germany, but hardly anyone has gone in. Of course, we've reopened with a very different schedule and very different processes and policies. But I mean, we have all the capability to work from home, and we've shown that we can. I think, you know, the biggest challenge for us is that social interaction, and you do miss the ability to collaborate in person. So I think that's what we'll play around with, how to do that. But otherwise, there's no real need to go in, and the cost savings of not going in every day are significant.
Yeah, I hear you. So Ivan has also asked, Ant, I'll just get you to go to this one. Will there be an issue with people who can't work from home, who look at people that can or do work from home and feeling like they're being penalised?
Yes, if the organisation doesn't adopt a position of saying, let's understand the circumstances, thinking and feeling of each individual person, and then work towards striking the balance between the position requirements. And there are some positions that do require you to be at a particular place of work that cannot be your home, versus those positions where there's a proportion of them where you can be at home. And I think that if an organisation tries to adopt a one-size-fits-all approach, then at their peril, both with existing talent and also future talent, as we've discussed. But I think that one of the perceptions that could play out that organisations need to be really attentive to is if it feels like there is an imbalance in the opportunity to access the flexible working conditions based on the needs of the individual and the balance between the job needs. I think if they don't adopt that approach, then yeah, I think that there could be some kind of perception, and talent will leave for that reason, right? But I think most organisations now are coming to the realisation that as much as we would like some uniformity and some level of control, not to control people, but to control the way in which we are able to assess and ensure the safety of our people in whatever environment they're actually in, ensuring that they can be productive and effective in what they're doing. I think that there is this continual sort of need to go and balance that based on sort of organisational desire for that systemised sort of approach versus now what we understand needs to be that individualised perspective. And if you want to attract and retain the top talent, you're going to have a look closely at the individual circumstances, thinking and feeling of your people.
It's almost really, it's a conversation thing, isn't it? It's from, if you're doing your branding and your recruitment right, you should be having that conversation up top. You know, we're doing some really interesting stuff at the moment around, if you're EVP, if one of your key pillars is just saying, if you join us, you'll get great balance or flexibility. Well, what we're saying is we challenge the organisation to say, okay, look at every role type in your organisation and tell me how that is experienced. And it's okay if it's different. You know, I think from the original question from Ivan, you know, in this role, if you join us, you won't be able to work from home. It's obvious, you know, it just won't happen. But here's how people in this role are experiencing flexibility and or balance. And does that work for you? It's almost like that unspoken contract that says, well, you want someone, you know, it's when people say, oh, this wasn't what I was sold, or nobody told me this, that's the issue. I think if you put it out there, and especially if you documented it, it's very powerful.
Well, it's one of the drivers of attachment, actually, Mark, is accuracy of job representation, right? And so whatever that job is, whether you're working at the corner shop in your local suburb, or whether you're at a big multinational, it's that willingness to talk up front, you're right, but it's also the willingness to keep coming back and talking all the way through their employee life cycle, because their circumstances will change. The organisation's circumstances change and their circumstances change. And it's that willingness to have those regular, deeper conversations, to dig below the sort of surface, sort of superficial stuff that often happens. Yes, we have regular one-on-ones, but it's going deeper than those sort of superficial conversations, which is where this stuff lives. And it's now that it's important to do that. And back to Jay's point, yes, Zoom will be, I guess the resistor to that, because we want to jump on there. We want to have, you know, tight conversations that are functionally oriented. We have to find a way to have these other conversations in a more meaningful way and more regularly as well, all the way through.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, there's a lot, I think, and as you said before, and I'm sure you'd all agree, speaks to leadership again, and how leaders have to now operate in this new world, basically.
Yeah, and Liz, can I just say, and use the tools that are fit for purpose. Don't just think that you can go and just do a pulse survey and know this stuff. There are the right tools to use in this space, and then there are other tools that will give you probably just an echoing of the superficial. If you want to go down and deep, you've got to have a look at the right way to go about doing that. So do your research. Yeah.
So and what I'll do on that then, because we didn't get to speak much about connection as opposed to attachment, I'll send, when I send the recording, I'll send some links to the connection tool and the attachment tool, some links from Mark, and then something about Indeed for Jay as well, so everyone will have what they need. But it's just after 11, so we'll need to wrap up. But I'm really grateful to Anthony, Jay and Mark. Thank you so much, and thanks everyone for joining us today. I can see some people are dropping off now that we're finishing up and it's after 11. But I'll send out a recording and a survey, as I always do, for your feedback, which takes about 60 seconds to complete. If anyone would like to explore using Indeed as part of your talent acquisition strategy, please reach out to Jay Munro on LinkedIn, who can put you in touch with someone to speak to, or you can ask me and I can put you in touch with Jay. If anyone would like to hear more about how Mark Puncher can help you develop and or improve your employer branding strategy, you can also find Mark on LinkedIn or reach out to me and I'll put you in touch. And finally, if you'd like to learn about how Anthony Sork work with you on leadership coaching, employee attachment and connection and culture transformation, you can talk to Anthony via LinkedIn or via me. for an initial conversation to hear how he's helped others enhance employee retention and performance through building a culture of excellence. Woo! That's a long one.
Well done, Lizzie.
It's been my absolute pleasure to host this webinar, and I hope you can join our next one in October. And thanks again, everybody. I will speak to you all hopefully soon. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Lizzie.
Thanks.
It's a pleasure partnering with you too, Lizzie. You do an amazing job in your space, and we're really proud partners with you. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks, Anne. I'm really grateful. Thanks, guys. See ya. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.